All right, everybody, we've made it to the last video of the quarter 3 review. What I need to do in this one here is to, because this is, again, it's still in chapter 9. We're dealing with a lot of the information that comes from quadratics, all about quadratics. And we've learned before the axis of symmetry. That was x equals negative b divided by 2a. But we have to realize that all of this has to do with a specific formula. It is the quadratic formula that we are dealing with. So x equals the opposite of b plus or minus the square root of b squared minus 4ac, and all of this is over 2a. Okay, notice this part here, there's your axis of symmetry. The whole thing together is going to be your quadratic formula, and just the information that is underneath the square root. Okay, just the part that is underneath the square root. So just this information here. That is called the discriminant. If you calculate the discriminant, you are going to get 3 possible results. You use a, b, and c from your equation, plug it into just the discriminant, that b squared minus 4 times a times c, and by this point you should say, hey, Mr. C is writing an equation. He's removing all the variables and putting parentheses around them. That means we are going to use that substitution law here. Of course. There's only 3 possible equations you're going to get out of this, okay, guys? This is going to equal a positive number. All right? It's going to equal a negative number. Or it's going to equal 0. Only 3 results. What the result is does not matter. It's what the sign is, or does it equal 0? If you have a positive, you're going to have 2 solutions. If your result is negative, there is no real solutions. That doesn't mean there's not a solution. Okay, you'll learn about imaginary numbers in Algebra 2, but in Algebra 1, we just need to know that there's no real solution, so you're done with the equation. Why would you want to calculate the whole entire thing if you can determine right away, hey, this particular problem has no solution? You got to calculate the discriminant anyways. So always start with calculating the discriminant when you have to use the quadratic equation. It helps you. So this would be for right now, it's like no real solution. Just abbreviate NRS, no real solution. And if you have 0, you only have 1 solution. Now, I know that some of you over time start to get confused. You see a 0 and you'll say, oh, there's no solution. No, that's not true. Because the square root, think of this. This is numbers underneath the square root. We can't have a negative number under a square root. We don't have a real solution in that case. You put a negative number in your calculator and hit Shift square root button, it gives you an error. There's a reason for that, because these little calculators that we have in class do not calculate negative square roots. So there's no real solution. If we've learned that when we put a positive number in there, like a positive 81, you could possibly have plus or minus 9, a positive or a negative 9. Well, what is the square root of 0? If you take the square root button in your calculator and do the square root of 0, right? So 0 shift square root equals, and all it does is do 0. That's still a solution, guys. That is a solution. So there's going to be 1 solution there. You're going to have only 1 solution, which generally means just the vertex is going to touch that x-axis in this particular problem. All right? That being said, now let's apply this information, because this was, of course, the review. This is why we're reviewing. The discriminant is the radicand, all the junk underneath the square root in your quadratic formula. So b, in this case, b is -5. So we can plug in a -5 here. All right, a is 1. Plug in a 1 there. C is 9. Plug in a 9. And then we can start to calculate this. So -5, we start order of operations, parentheses. There's several of them. And then we go to the next one, exponents. Okay, -5 times -5 is a positive 25. Now, you have, please be careful with this negative. Okay, please, please, please. This is like basically saying this is a -4. So -4 times 1 times 9. -4 times 1 times 9 is -36. So now we simplify this. So what do we end up getting? Does the answer in this case really matter? No, it's the sign of it. You have a positive 25 and you're taking away 36. Your result is going to be negative. We have a negative answer here. So you have -11. This equals -11. Because it is a negative solution, there are going to be no real solutions for this particular example. Of course, then again, you got to do the same thing here with the number of solutions. So you have b squared minus 4 times a times c, the discriminant, the radicand, the junk under the square root. B is 5. A is, again, 1. -8. So 5 times 5 is 25. -4 times 1 is a -4. And then -4 times a -8 is a positive 32. Well, don't even have to add these together. A positive plus a positive is going to give you a positive answer. And so how many solutions are there? There are 2 real solutions there for you. That's all these are. Now it says, here's another one. Find the number of real solutions. Guys, you can do this one yourself. You figure it out. Plug in your B, plug in your A, plug in your C, square it, and then keep going. Evaluate carefully, all right? Number 41 says use the quadratic equation. So x equals the opposite of b plus or minus the square root of b squared minus 4 times a times c, and this is all divided by 2 times a. Guys, these are the ones that, yeah, they can take a little bit of extra work. Be careful. Read the whole problem. It says use commas to separate your answers as needed. Notice it does not say round, so we should get whole numbers. They usually give that away for us, okay? So be careful. B is -4. It's the opposite of B, and then there's another B in here. A is -5. And C is 1. So we calculate this discriminant first. That's our side work. We do it off to the side. So -4 squared is 16. And then we have a -4 times a -5. So that's 20 times 1, which is still 20. So the discriminant is 36. So there's a 36 under a square root. So now we can say, okay, test it. Is that a perfect square? Yes, it is. The square root of 36 equals 6. So now we can substitute this in for this entire piece. So now we're going to simplify one more time. The opposite of -4 is 4 plus or minus 6, because this entire piece here came out to 6. divided by 2 times -5, which is -10. If you remember, we have a plus or minus in there, and we have to represent this 6 as both a positive or a negative number. So we have to rewrite this equation. We'll have a 4 plus 6 divided by 10, and you'll have a 4 minus 6 divided by 10. Okay, so 4 plus 6 is 10. 10 divided by 10 equals 1. Here's one possible solution. And then we do the next one, 4 minus 6. Okay, so we have a -2. Don't stop. This can reduce. Look, you have a 2 and a 10. It can definitely reduce. So 2 goes into 10 5 times. 2 goes into 2 once, and it's negative because it's a positive divided by a negative here. Okay, so here is your other one, -1/5. So this is one, guys, that it wouldn't have probably would not have factored. They generally will not ask us to solve things using a quadratic equation if it doesn't factor easily. We can do roots method. We can factor. We can use the quadratic equation. I'm telling you right now, if you're not good at the others, this will always work. The quadratic equation will always work. Okay. 42 is a solve by the quadratic formula and simplify. Okay, it's the same thing that we just did here, guys. You need to take the time, go very carefully, write your equation out. X equals the opposite of B plus or minus the square root of B squared whatever your B is, minus 4 times A times C, all divided by 2A. Right? You side work, calculate all the stuff under the square root first, and check it is a perfect square. All right? Then you finish simplifying and you break it apart in the end, just like we did above. Okay, here's one that is going to be a pain. You're going to finish 42 on your own. 43, notice what it says. Round to the nearest hundredth. Hundredth is 2 decimal spots, so it's like a point something something. Okay, you have to be careful on this one. This is one that when you do it, you are not. When we did it up here, remember, we got, 36. And yes, it is a perfect square root. Oh, such nice math. It's not going to be a perfect square root in the next one. So you have to be careful. You must be careful. Let's do this one together. So the opposite of 5 plus or minus the square root of 5 squared minus 4 times 3 times -4. All divided by 2 times A, and A was 3. Okay, side work, let's calculate this. So 5 squared is 25. And then you have a -4 times a -4 is a 16. And a 16 times 3 is 48. So 48 plus 25 is 73. Notice, 73, if you test it, is not a perfect square root. Leave it like that. And now let's keep going to simplify. It's not a perfect square root. We don't have a nice number, so leave it, leave it, leave it, leave it. So the opposite of 5 is a -5. You're left with -5 plus or minus the square root of 73. And 2 times 3 is 6. Okay, you're ready to break this into two pieces. -5 plus the square root of 73 divided by 6. And -5 minus the square root of, oh, that one did not come out right. Square root of 73 divided by 6. And ladies and gentlemen, this would be on the second part of your algebra EOC, because this is clearly a calculator problem. They are not expecting you to calculate the square root of 73 in your head. So very carefully, I'm going to, since I can't share what the calculator looks like as I type it, I'm going to talk you through it like we did in class. So you hit -5 plus 73 shift square root and hit the equal button. You have to total that numerator first. Then you go divided by 6 equals, and we get this big number here. Okay, it's 0.5906672 If you did not read your directions, you're not going to enter the right answer. It said round your answer to the nearest hundredth. Hundredths is only 2 decimal spots. So you look at the third one. 5 and above, give it a shove. So 5 and above, you would move this up. 4 and below, leave it alone. So this is 0. It's less than 5. So first answer is 0.59. Great. And now you have to do the next one. So get your calculator out. You put in 5 negative, or -5, minus 73 shift square root. Make sure you hit equals. We are totaling the numerator. Then divided by 6. And here we get this like -2.2573, and there's a bunch more. Okay, so we need hundredths place. 2 decimals. So we look at the third one, it's a 5. Oh, I'm sorry, a 7. 5 and above, give it a shove. It's bigger than 5, so it's going to take this 7 makes this 5 go up 1. So -2.26. Perfect, and you're done. Again, here is another one. It says use the quadratic formula to solve the equation. You must know how to use the quadratic formula, whether you get the nice pretty answer or you get the answers like this where you have decimals. It's all calculator. That's why I've stressed all year long the calculator is a tool, and we should be able to use that tool properly. Think about roofers. Yes, a roofer could put in 10,000 nails in the roof manually with an old-fashioned hammer, but that is why a nail gun was invented. You don't want to have to do this manually. Use the tools that you're given effectively. You guys finished 44. And here we go again. This one is, which method is best to solve this equation? Justify your answer and your reasoning. So you should notice, yes, this is a quadratic. See, there is the highest degree term is second power, so that's a quadratic. But we're missing a term here. Anytime you are missing that middle term, that x term, it's always easier to use the roots method. Roots. Remember, we could do all that work to put it in a quadratic equation. It will work. You could factor it and do the work of factoring, remembering that special case. Hey, this entire first term is a perfect square. The last term is a perfect square. There's a subtraction sign. You can use that. Or you could simply say, hey, I can just solve for this term here. So I need to get rid of this -9. So you add 9 to both sides. Then you go through and say, hey, I need to get rid of this 4. So you divide 4 by both sides. All right, so now you're with an x squared equals 9 over 4. Now you say, oh, I can get rid of this. Plus or minus the square root of all this. Well, the square root of 9 is 3. The square root of 4 is 2. There's your answer. That's so much easier than doing all the other steps. So this one, again, this was the roots method. Using the roots method. Square roots, because there is no x term. And if you read these guys, it kind of like, look, there's no x term. Was there an x term? No. So they're kind of giving you the answer. And that's it. You will notice at the very end, I am emailing all your parents this in case you can't get into Math Excel anymore. You didn't download it when I asked you to and save it to your computer. All the answers to your particular one are here. Guys, this is where you start to learn on your own. The answers are here. Okay, there's no grade, there's no reason to cheat. Your sole purpose of doing these is, can I do the work? So you do it, and then you come to the answer key and you see, hey, did I do it right? If it's not right, go back and figure out where you made your mistake. One more time, I'm going to say this next video that I'm making, that's going to be the one coming, it is just a video of very, very, very important style problems. It's a little bit of all the things, or maybe it's a tricky question that you might be asked, those level 3 questions or the level 4 questions, that they're not hard, but the way they ask them to you is tricky. Please make sure that the next video I put out, you can do every single one of those problems, okay? Please like, please subscribe, please watch this and knock the heck out of this test, guys. I know you all can do it. You're one of my classes, and of course, my classes always do their best. Have a good one.